Welcome to the Art of Equine Alchemy. I'm your host, Amber Leidick, horse trainer, healer, and mentor. This is a podcast where practical horsemanship meets personal evolution. Here, we're diving into what it means to truly connect with your horse, yourself, and the world around you. Through conversations with equine professionals, horse owners, and members of our community, we will explore real stories, actionable insights, and tools designed to help you heal and thrive. This isn't just about horses. It's about transforming how you show up in your life. Because when you address what's happening within yourself, everything around you starts to align. Whether you're looking to refine your horsemanship skills, gain clarity on your own path, or create a more meaningful connection in all areas of your life, you are in the right place. Let's get started. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Art of Equine Alchemy podcast. This is my Mirror in the Stall series, where we are talking to so many people that I 100% adore. And Denise is like top 3 for me. She's like top 3 favorite people on the planet. So thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me. So good to be here.
I know. I was so excited to talk to you. I woke up last night and I was like trying to do my schedule for today. And it's like, oh, I got to talk to Denise tomorrow. How exciting. Do you want to explain to people what it is you do, quote unquote?
Yes, I'd be happy to. And it's interesting to have this conversation. This morning, I was answering some questions for one of my astrology mentors, and she had asked me some questions about how did I end up doing what I do. And of course, because she's my mentor, she's extraordinarily insightful, intuitive, right? And she always says to me, I really see you as like a psychic and an intuitive guide more than an astrologer.
Mhm.
And so that led me back into really thinking about like something that you and I talked about, like what am I passionate about? Why do I do what I do? I feel very blessed to be able to do this for a livelihood, but from a very young age and this is like so many people that are in this community, being able to sense or hear or see things differently, at the very least, right? The sensitivities, having our senses so much more amplified, maybe. I don't know. At this point, though, I'm like, do I know anyone who doesn't have their senses amplified? But that may be just because I've curated a particular group of people in my life that I love, like super sensitive, super aware. And whether we call it psychic or intuitive, having a connection to something beyond ourselves.
Mhm.
And so, what do? I work with astrology as a portal to allow a lot of that training that I've had in mediumship and psychic and intuitive guidance and awareness to move through in a really practical way. One of the things I love about astrology is that it can define time. Because in the spiritual world, well, we're just going to drop right into this. In the
Yeah.
spiritual
No
world,
wasting any time, okay?
yeah, boom. In the spiritual world, there is no such thing as time. There is no time, and it's cyclical anyway. So it's like, and we talk about past lives, but are they past? So anyway, that's another thing. Um, anyway, but being able to access both, I've got and I love it. Like this is something I'm deeply passionate about, being able to bring something to my clients that is practical as well as spiritual. And that's really how I've been working for very specifically the last 26, 27 years with that in mind. And I love it. I'm super happy to have these portals to offer to people so that we can look at, and there's more than one purpose in life. People talk about life path, life purpose. We do have we have some defined life paths and soul purposes that we come in with, and you can find those in various ways. I do think there's plenty to choose from. So I don't ever want anyone to walk away thinking they're not on their life path. If you're here, you're still on your path. It's like if you're not, you're on a different path. So, there's that, but there is I think there can be a greater understanding and a deeper understanding of why we're here. So when I look at my own astrology, I am actually doing a lot of what that astrology would say to do. And one thing you mentioned is to look at maybe where I'm being stretched, where my area of lessons are. And I wanted to just dive right into this right away because we can talk, you and I can talk, and you can ask questions or whatever. But I think the area of, I mean, I have like 4,000 areas of stretching right now. But one of them is how I can integrate and bring together the different loves of my life. And astrology, the psychic realm, I found my way there. Numerology, tarot, I got it. It's like I've got this. But there's this other piece of work that I teach, which is called sensuous wisdom. And it is very much, and we've talked about this on your podcast before, very much about embodying one's power, embodying one's love and compassion, strength, passion, anger. It could be anything, but how am I embodying it? And how am I deeply in my senses? And this is something in various forms that I've been teaching since 2004. And basically, it is centering on a woman's body. It's not limited to women per se, but I tend to work with women. But this idea of being able to deepen into our bodies and heal our own traumas, with help when needed. Like I'm very much in awe of people who work with trauma from a psychological place, from a somatic psychology place, in all the ways that people, and all of you here in this group, you work with trauma in animals all the time. So anyway, that's very important that I just put that out there because I am not a trauma expert, but I do know that the work that I teach does help heal trauma, as does actually astrology helps us identify where trauma is in the chart. So my stretch is how do I bring this all together? And so that's where I've been kind of dabbling over the last few years about embodying the goddesses, which is the asteroid goddesses, and how we can embody more of our astrology that's been given to us in our bodies. How do we live our astrology? How do we live our spiritual soul purpose? And how do I use my body and the practices that I teach in order to bring that forward in life more? So that's a really long explanation and a little convoluted, but I thought I would just kind of bring it all out. And then on a personal level, because we're going to go wherever we're going to go today. But on a personal level, one of the areas I'm still really working on is balance. Over, boy, a lot of overs, over giving, over promising, over caring. But so even when I say that, I'm like, you can't over care. But like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Overworking. Yeah, so that is something I think when we love what we get to do for a living, it can be easy to work too much. And where I find that showing up a big surprise is in my body. How do I take care of my health and my, physical health, my mental health, emotional health, and still work? And then, it's the thing that I think many people are very much connected to right now, because I really do care about the earth and I care about people and I care about, all the things that are happening right now that are, I mean, there's so many good things happening. There's just an awareness and a consciousness that is just getting deeper and larger. And with the animals being our wisdom keepers, and so many people being able to hear them, that I love. I don't really know how I'm going to bring that in, but there's that too. Like, and when I have my own cats, they act as my familiars, as people are, I'm sure, aware of. I don't have a cat right now. I have cats that live on my porch from the neighbor's house because they just all congregate here. And they're literally right behind this wall. And they're just probably sitting there like this, just like, what is she saying? Where is she going? She needs help. She needs help. So anyway, that's a rather convoluted beginning, but I hope that made some sense, at least to give us a place to start.
Yeah, because
I recently did this pause workshop, and
Yes.
the last the last word in the acronym is embody, and it's like the integration piece, right? And it's the part that I feel like I am deep in the lessons around,
Mhm.
because literally Shaylee has been on a total meditation bender for a while, right? I think she's lightened up, because I was a little worried. But
Mhm.
um and then I was also,
Mhm.
and I found in the last, I don't know, like week and a half, 2 weeks, I am so resistant, and I
Mhm.
don't know why. It's like I'm looking at, okay, here's this next level of things that I really want. I know exactly how to get them, because I need to do the embody, the like, let me go
Yeah.
into this, like, let me, regulate my nervous system and have this lived experience. And like, I'm like, I know how to do this. I'm like, and it's all the things I want. I'm like, so what is my deal? I'm like, what? And I'm like, obviously I'm supposed to really teach this, or I wouldn't be so deep in it. But
Right.
it's so
Right.
interesting how
Yes.
I'm like, I'm gonna meditate for sure. I'm gonna tell my mind that we're gonna sit down and we're gonna do this. And it's so strange. I'm having to work so hard at that right now. So,
Well, so this is why, and by the way, I have to tell you, I'm a little distracted. This is hilarious. So I don't know if you'd be able to see this, but there's a cat on the roof next to, okay, so there's a little shed here right out the window, and there's a cat laying on the top of the roof, just like this, staring at me. He just moved, but it's one of the neighbor cats. And I'm like, hello, yeah, I see you. So anyway, distraction, full distraction. But coming back to embodiment and integration, this is why I love to teach movement meditation, because sitting meditation is amazing, and I'm not great at it. I mean, my partner can do it for hours,
Mm.
literally. Zen Buddhist meditation. He can sit still for, I'm like, oh my God, oh
It
my
makes my
God.
skin feel itchy just thinking about sitting for hours.
I know. And he's a very active person. Now there's two cats on the roof staring at me. I'm not kidding.
The
They
gathering.
never do this,
Can you
Amber.
take a picture with your phone of them? Are you on your phone?
No, I'm not on my phone.
Oh.
Oh, I'm not, I'm gonna try not to be distracted, because of course they're perched on the like the most like dangerous points, and they want to start playing with each other. So I have
I want to be a part of the call.
David told me today, don't worry, Denise, they're young cats. They survive when they jump off the roof. Don't worry. Okay. But anyway, movement meditation. And so maybe we should talk about cats, because they're obviously here
Yeah,
in
the
our,
cat energy is
yeah.
here.
So when you think about cats, or any, and you can think about horses too, I think in this way, and dogs too, they have a certain amount of stillness that they can get to, right? They get really, really, really still,
Mhm.
but then they have to move. They have to move. And then I'm not a horse person, so I can't speak to this, but my sense is that when a horse is moving kind of at a regular pace, there's an element of meditation in that movement, both for the horse and for if there's a rider, the rider as well. Um, so what I really, and when I'm working with my groups, so I do have groups that I offer that go deeper, I always offer this, I offer a guided meditation with a little bit of movement. But then there's also the actual movement meditation that brings us into our body and helps us integrate by, and here's the key, I think, dropping us out of our heads, bringing us, we can enter in our hearts if that's easier, but even dropping us deeper, all the way down to the sacral, which for women call the womb space. And so, I mean, I'm not the only one that does that, but that's how I refer to the womb space. And it's a space. You don't have to have all the parts in there. It's a space. And it is our lower dantian, if people are familiar with Qigong, or probably some other modalities as well. The idea is to bring it down, let this go, but stay connected, connect to the earth and connect to the heavens, right? So you've done a lot of Qigong, so you know that connection between the two. And for me, that there's nothing like what I've experienced in the practice that I teach. And I have I actually have trained quite a number of teachers in this modality, some of whom live down near you, and they're kind of all over now. But this idea, we do it in a circle. You can do it alone. We do it to music, which I think also adds to the experience. You don't have to do it to music. And in fact, part of the training is to be able to not do it to music. So you're not relying on the music. But wow, it's so nourishing. And it really does enter into the spaces that particularly, I'm going to speak to women because that's my experience as a woman in this lifetime. The places that we have blocked, particularly around our power.
Mhm.
And so many of us in our early lives, or even now, we're told to shut it down. It's not safe. We don't want you to have your power. Don't go there. That's not, you're not supposed to do that. And a lot of times over the years, when I've worked with women in various forms, they'll say to me, I can't open that space up in my body because then I might feel too much. And that would be not safe for me. So that's what I'm passionate about. How can we create more safety so all people can be authentic in their power, sensitive, and feel aligned with each other? So when you talk about, how do I meditate? I'm like, well, there's time for stillness and there's time for movement. And, I honor you for doing the stillness meditations, but dance. And oh, by
Mhm.
the way, this particular practice I teach is one of the hallmarks of it. It is that it is slower than slow. So
Mhm.
even though we're moving, we are literally moving at a snail's pace, but it
Mhm.
is a constant serpentine movement and it is throughout the entire body. So there is movement and it's small and
Mhm.
it's slow, but it's not sitting. So anyway, I hope I didn't digress too much, but I just wanted to say that's what came up for me when you said meditation.
Yeah, no, and I mean, it's interesting. I texted Shaylee this morning and I was like, I want somebody to take me on a journey like I take people on a
Mhm.
journey. Like I need to like figure that like how do I do that to myself? And when I do the somatic experiencing stuff, it is meditation and there's tons of
Yes,
movement.
yes.
So it's like it's almost like there's something blocking me around wanting to have the things. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's like I'm avoiding the things to have the things that I want. And I'm like, oh, God. So
You
that is,
know how you can come up here. I just had an immersion. Client came for 4 days.
Hmm.
You can come up here. I'll take you through it.
Oh my God. I
You
want to do
can visit Celeste because she lives like right up the
that.
road.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
definitely do that.
No, you could do that. And the reason I keep pointing is that the house next door is an Airbnb.
Oh,
Um, and so you can just stay right next door
mm.
and
And
like do that.
we're going to maybe end up there looking around at things. So, I know. So that actually might not be a thing that's so far-fetched because that would
I
totally
I'd be very happy to do anything I have to offer. I'm happy to offer it to you.
okay.
I mean, for anybody that doesn't know, Amber and I have known each other a very long time. So please, if this is something that I've never been able to offer you before,
Mm.
so this
Yeah.
would be a good time.
Yeah. I was like, what? I need something more. So I'm like, there's something else that needs to happen right now. And it's like this next level. And I'm just like anxious to do it. But then also it's like, God, I just want
Well,
to,
and this could be a gateway. It could be a gateway to something else, but it would
yeah,
certainly give you an opportunity to visit the area.
yeah, totally.
Okay,
Yeah.
just
That would
saying.
be doing
Okay,
that.
okay.
Um, so speaking to the work that you do as far as the relationship to self feels like it
Mhm.
comes into place because my experience with you has always been the readings astrologically, and then there's so much more of your intuition weaved in. But it helped me, it almost like validated for me the experiences that I had, where it made me feel like, well, there is more, right? There is something more, obviously, because how could that be so aligned with this?
Mhm.
Like, surely the things are working together.
Yeah.
And And so that is such a significant role in, and I talk about all the time with people, is that relationship to self, to
Mm.
all the parts, right? The energy side of you, the like physical body and like the mental aspect of things and smashing them all together. And so for people that are feeling like they just don't know where to start, how would you guide somebody in that space?
Wow, that's a big question. Okay, smashing it all together. Um, when we're in relationship with ourselves, it's from that place that we can have stronger relationships with the divine. We can have stronger relationship with our animals, with our people, with plants, with the earth, with the cosmos in general. In astrology in particular, if we think about how astrology is designed, Aries is the first sign, Pisces is the last sign. Aries is the sign of I am. So Aries energy, which we're getting very close to some really powerful aspects. There's a lot going on this year, as you know, but we're getting close to some 0 point. Aries is called the 0 point of Aries, new beginnings, right? But Aries talks about, how do I know myself? And that I must know myself before or as, because I think it's an ongoing thing. I don't think we're going to know ourselves and then do it. I think it's
Yeah.
just sort of like we get to know ourselves the whole way. But as I step through the astrology, right now we're in Pisces, so we're in that last sign. But as we begin to go into Aries, how can I know myself better? Then as we moved into Taurus, how can I be in my body more and understand my value as the person I am? So I continue that learning journey. And then in the Gemini, we begin to communicate that journey with our friends. We learn more. Gemini is very much about learning. But again, it's all based on, and we just keep going through each of the signs. But by the time we get to Pisces, we're at, wow, I've been on a journey to know myself. And now I know myself as one of many, as part of this much bigger collective of beings that inhabit the multiverse. And there is something called, love that permeates everything. So we go on that journey, and we do it all the time. We keep going through the journey. So how does one start with knowing oneself, through the lens of it? And I think this is why I love astrology. I think so many of us, especially when we're kids, but maybe when we're 42 also, or 60, or however old we are, who am I? What am I doing here? Why am I here? What's my purpose? It's like, okay, good questions. Why am I here? Now, especially if you're a child and you've undergone some really challenging times, you might be like, what was I thinking? Like, what is this about? And so I think that's how I got drawn to astrology, was it gave me a form to start to understand life a little bit more. So, again, not I don't want to go into a big, huge astrology lesson, but the idea is, if you start with your sun sign, we all know what our sun sign is, um, generally. Sometimes we don't, though. I say that and I'm like, well, how many people have you worked with, Denise, that were born on the cusp? Actually, the other sign that this has happened so many times. So no, we don't all know our sun sign, but let's just say most of us know our sun signs. And we just start with that as a way to understand our mission. Like, this is our mission in life. We're going to have this flavor. Um, the Sagittarian mission is to share joyfully and super authentically and directly, um, the philosophy of life, and to help others understand their connection to the material realm and the spiritual realm through animals. I mean, that is a very Sagittarian way to be. A Taurus, which is my sign, be in the body, understand the value of being on earth, be very present in the body on earth. So understand your sun sign as a way to kind of get you started. And then you have a moon, obviously, and you have a rising sign, and then you have all these planets in all these places, and they talk and share and converse, and then they move. And there's all kinds of information that we can dial into every single day. if we wanted to.
Yeah.
And now I'm distracted. They're just jumping off the roof. It's fine. They're good. They're good. Little movement out of the eye. Can't help myself. So anyway, I hope that answers the question of where would we start. I think just start by just recognizing that you're here on this journey on Earth. And the type of astrology I do is Earth centered. You are the center of the astrology chart. There are other types of astrology that put the sun at the center. I don't do that. But it is like if I'm here to be fully me. I'm here to fully express who I am. And if I don't fully understand what that is, how can I find out more? And you can find out more by living life. You can find out more by interacting. Like you said, relationships are our key to understanding ourselves and others.
Mhm.
So, is that helpful?
Yeah. So for you, what did that journey look like? Like, what was there a pivotal moment that you felt like sparked your wanting to understand things more? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like you're a little kid and you grow up and you're just doing like little kid life, assuming something really horrible hasn't happened, and then all of a sudden
Mhm.
something has to spark this. I want to know more about myself that
Yeah,
that path. Do you have a moment that was that for you?
I do. I think I have a couple of them. This will probably get pretty serious, but I imagine it does for everyone. So when I was young, my father was in Vietnam, and there, before the age of 4, um, it was just a rough time. There was a constant stress. It was just, I was the oldest, so it was just my mom and me, and her constant fear that my father was going to die.
Hmm.
Okay. And there were so many, at that time, at the end of the day, the news, the black and white, I think we had a black and white TV. My mom would have the news on and they would show the names of all the people who had died in the week before, because again, it wasn't like it is now. It wasn't live. It
Hmm.
was recorded. And I couldn't read. It's not like I could read, but I could, and I was 3. I mean, but what I knew was something really hard was going on, and there was a lot of fear. And we went to live with my grandparents because my mom just really needed a safe space to be. And I just knew it wasn't very safe out there. And that got me wondering about what are we doing here? So I can, even at the age of 3 and 4, just kind of be like, this is interesting. So, like many of us, I went straight to the animals. My cats were everything for me, and they were everything. And we didn't have horses. We almost had horses. I don't know if I ever told you that, but we almost had horses, but we didn't have them. But I had unicorns.
Hmm.
I had this feeling of, I kind of grew up steeped in Irish fairy tales. My father would um send reel to reel tapes back from where he was stationed in Thailand and different places. And on those audio tapes, he would read Irish fairy tales to me,
Hmm.
which, anyway, we don't have to go on that long story. But anyway, but actually, no, I have to share this story because this is really pivotal. So I'd be listening to the Irish fairy tales or him singing. He was a very, um, yeah, had a beautiful voice. Um, And I'd be listening to the fairy tales, but I could hear artillery fire in the background.
Oh.
So as a child, and how audio like goes straight into the brain, the neural pathways, trauma, the whole thing, right? So I'm literally listening to Irish fairy tales and some singing while there's artillery fire and explosions happening in the background.
Hmm.
And this is all going into my little brain, my
How
developing
conflicting.
brain. Yeah, it was kind of when I think about it, the understanding of death was pretty early in my life.
Hmm.
I didn't, and I know you know this from your own story, so I know you understand that we don't really understand it, but we understand that there's something.
Mm-hmm.
different, and our cats or our dogs or horses pass. And so we know that there's an element of that. So that kind of continued, that theme continued. There was a lot of death in my life at a very young age. I think by 7, my best friend had been killed in a car accident after leaving our home. And then that was really, really hard. And I repressed that for a very, very long time. Like I didn't really remember it till I was in my 40s because it was so hard. But I can remember now at that age being really like, okay, what is the point of being here? This is hard. Like,
Yeah.
and then my grandmother died. But here's the really crux point. When my grandmother passed, I was probably 7.5. So again, all of this happened like right around the same time. And she came to me immediately after she
Mm-hmm.
died. And she did not leave my side for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did she cross over? Yes. She crossed over and she came back. She wasn't stuck on this side, but she crossed over and came back. And she was my constant companion for a very, very long time. And one of my first psychic mentors told me that my grandmother died really young. She was 59. So, maybe not as young as other people's parents or grandparents, but for me, that was young. I missed her terribly. She was one of the anchors in my life. But this one psychic mentor I had said she chose to come back right away in that form for me because she felt like she could help me more um, from that side than she could living 3,000 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that she chose to die, but that because she was not revived, she'd had a couple of heart attacks already. So, it just happened that she passed. But she's like, okay, now that I'm on the other side, I'm going to go straight to her and be with her, which I've always deeply appreciated. My childhood was unfortunately, very abusive. There was a lot of abuse and neglect toward me and my siblings. And so I am grateful. And that's what changed my life was that moment when I realized she was right there with me and that I could go on and be safe
Mm-hmm.
somehow, And then I have a Sagittarius moon. So very Sagittarian positive. Remember, we were talking about being positive. There's something in me that says there's going to be a better something, fill in the blank.
Mm-hmm.
I know it will be better. And when you're a kid and you're growing up and it's challenging, I think there needs to be that narrative, or we're not going to get through it. I honestly, I mean, my heart aches for those that don't have that, um, that maybe that just extra privilege of being able to say it's going to get better, it's going to get better. And, eventually, I mean, life brings us a lot. So I just kind of stayed with, I need to look at the other realms for support.
Mm-hmm.
That was a really long-winded answer, but thank you for asking the question.
No, it was perfect. I just read somewhere or heard an audio, and it was talking about your wounding from childhood or from early on oftentimes shapes your purpose. And,
Yeah.
once you realize you hit adulthood and you have this like deep desire to do XYZ, it's
Mhm.
what you sort of needed
Yes,
for a child.
100%.
Yeah.
In astrology, this is the Chiron component of astrology. So Um, we'll hear people talk about the dreaded Chiron return or the dreaded Saturn return, but really they are helping us kind of really fine tune what we're doing here. And so you're so right. When we look at childhood wounding, and Chiron can also include past life wounding, but even if we just stuck with this lifetime, you're so right. Being able to learn compassion was something that I know I came onto this planet to learn how to be more compassionate. I also know that the stuff that happened when I was a child, I mean, I'm kind of like able to utilize all that now. It's like, wow, that was real. And I was lucky because even though my household was really challenging, there wasn't someone shutting that down.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't someone shutting that down. I grew up in a very, it wasn't really hippie, but like, astrology and past lives and this and that was normal. Like we didn't have crystals hanging from everywhere, but we could have maybe. But, we had, folk music on and anti-war protests in the house and around and stuff. But it is really important that we acknowledge our childhood wounding as something that is really pivotal to helping us find our greatest gifts. And that's what Chiron does very beautifully in a chart. And that's actually something I'm going to work with. I'm going to be teaching in Wales next month. And that's something I'm actually going to bring forward for all of us is that reminder. And again, if we are blessed with some support to get us through our childhood and get us to adulthood, then we can start unpacking all of that and finding our way to who we are in an even greater way. That relationship with self that you're talking about. So, yes, 100,000%.
Yeah, it's interesting too because it's like I guess I'm also friends with a lot of coaches and mentors and
Yes,
people.
you are. Yeah.
So I think
Pretty amazing people you call friends.
I lose sight of when people listen to us all talk and we talk about our purpose and our passion and then there's people that are like, well, I don't want to help anybody.
Yeah, that's true.
Like I don't, I don't know what my purpose is, but I don't feel called to do any of that work. So what's the point of me? Like I had someone ask that. And so if someone was to ask you that, what would you say to them?
Yeah, that's a great question because actually, like you, I tend to be wired towards service oriented. Like, how can I help? How can I teach? How can I guide? Very similar to you. But yes, you know what? If you consider that we're all part of one organism, right? Not everybody can be the liver, the lungs, and the heart. Everybody can be, everybody's going to be something else. If someone was going to be the spine or bone marrow, they have a different role to play, right? They need to focus on what it is that is their reason for getting up in the morning, right? If someone were to, so you don't, yeah, not everybody has to go out and help others. I guess I would probably ask that person, why do you get up in the morning? What is it that motivates you? Is there anything that inspires you? And I can see in the chart, there's a lot I can see in the chart. And sometimes I will have a client who isn't necessarily living what I might have seen in the chart. There may seem to be a disconnect. So what I do then is I just get really curious. Like there must be another way to see the chart if this is how they're living, right? And so I learn a lot that way because, if I see someone who's got a really heavy ninth house and I know they're here to inspire others, but they're like, no way, then I think I have to look at maybe the other parts of the ninth house, which are to live your life and receive that which you desire. It's like the wishing well house. Maybe they're just here they might be in what I call a resting lifetime, right? They're not here to be of service. They're resting this lifetime. Maybe they get everything they need because they didn't for 20 lifetimes prior.
I love
There are people on the planet that are not here to do all the work
it.
that we do.
Yeah.
I get a little envious sometimes. No. But seriously, but I think if they find their way to me and we're having that conversation, then obviously there's something else they need and want from their lives, or they wouldn't be talking to me. But there are definitely people that are here resting. To put this in another context, okay. So when I think about soldiers, warriors, people who have passed through war, okay, could be men, women, children, anyone. Sometimes they'll come back and their whole life might be about research. That not doesn't necessarily go out to others, but they're here trying to understand why does this happen on planet Earth? So their soul is still trying to evolve, but in a more in a different way, because their life maybe was taken in a very violent fashion. And so they need a resting lifetime. The fact that they came back at all maybe shows us that there is an element of service involved in that, because just by taking a breath on the planet, just by being, they are there's an impact that they're having. And I'm not saying like this is really important, because there are people that are uh clearly doing things to hurt and destroy. Those souls also have a journey that they're on. Very, very challenging for me some days to find compassion there, but that is part of what I'm charged to do, is to look at how did that soul get there? They probably, if they're in that deep with doing really things that are destructive, not likely they're really thinking about their soul's journey. They're not likely thinking about that, but I'm thinking about it.
Hmm.
I'm thinking about, wow, they're a part of the organism too, and
Hmm.
I could go deeper into that, but I think I'd rather not. But that is part of, that's part of when we are on a spiritual journey, we are asked and invited to look at all of the aspects of that, the shadow and the light. And you know this because you teach this. We cannot live without knowing our shadow. So, in addition to understanding our wounds, we need to know how, whether it's our wounds or our culture, our environment, how our shadow aspects show up. And boy, do they show up, and how do we work with our shadow?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you got this dialed in. Everything you offer has to do with all of this.
Yeah, shadow work is my favorite thing.
I know. I
It's like
know.
lifestyle. Because
Yeah.
shadow work is a lifestyle. It's
Mhm.
once
Mhm.
you learn it, it's just a way of being. And I do talk about how much more difficult it is to do when you when you are in it in these moments. So like my area of stretch has definitely been in relationship. I know a lot of people come, they're struggling with their horse. And I'm like, I think you come and there's an area of learning. And my horses have definitely been reflecting back to me like the light shadow, the
Mhm.
maybe the good aspects of me that I couldn't really see anywhere else. But if I looked at me through their eyes, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. So mine has always been relationship, as you know.
Yes.
Pete has been through many of my relationships. Um, and so that's still where my biggest points of learning are, and knowing, okay, this is where my default belief systems are, and why when I hear XYZ, my brain translates it into you're not worthy, you have to prove your worth, you have to, all the things. But knowing that when that's happening, I can see, well, that's mine. And
Mhm.
how grounded can I stay in this?
Yeah.
And how, I have a max out limit.
Mhm.
And then the old stuff comes out, and then but always beyond it, I can go, okay,
Mhm.
here's what happened and here, and then
Yeah.
this is what we can do next time. And so that piece, it's like one day will I ever be like, oh, like nothing is bothering me anymore? Like,
No, probably not.
probably
I don't think,
not.
no, I think the human existence is just kind of built in. I find you very inspiring because you are one of the most self-aware people I know. And you do take that, we call it shadow work, but basically what you did is you just broke it down. You're like, these are the defaults. And they've been built over time because of wounding and other things that have happened in our lives. But how do you rewire that? How do you connect with it? But you have to see it first. And you're one of those people. And relationships, as you say, they are beautiful ways for us to get in touch with what's a default pattern in our own lives. And boy, man, if you would commit to the path of a relationship of any kind, it can be human or animal, when you're committed and devoted in that relationship, or at least to the relationship that is in that moment, wow, you will learn so much. And again, we can't really blame people for not necessarily wanting to do that, or to anesthetize themselves to that, because it takes so much fortitude and grace and resilience and grit sometimes, right? To just face that. That's
Mhm,
why we call, this is why we're doing this, right? Face the mirror. What
mhm,
is in that mirror? And, sometimes I'm like, oh, oh, really? Again? Like, how did I get here again? And that's why I have a really awesome therapist. But that, it's just like bringing that back to the forefront, normalizing it, which was, I think, what you do a lot in your work. You're really gifted at this, making it okay to be human and giving people tools to become even better humans, right?
Mhm.
Like, am I aspiring to be a high spiritual being? No, I'm aspiring to be the best human I can be with this soul in this lifetime. And then hopefully, I'll have grown and evolved. That's my, and I know a lot of us want to contribute something to this planet in some form that makes it a better place for animals, for humans, for everything. So, we have a big ask of ourselves. So it really does help to break it down, and everything you do is just brilliant, Amber.
Thanks.
Good job. Thanks. You know what the next step is, Amber?
Oh
Here's the
God.
next step. Here's the next step. You say, thank you. It's true.
I know, as soon as I said thanks, I was like, here. So when you have friends, okay? When you have friends that do all the things, like I don't have any close friends that I even talk to on a regular basis that don't hear everything I say and like have their own like analysis, and I don't ever even feel judged. Like, and
Right.
I just appreciate it where I heard it come out of my mouth and I was like, because I know this part is where I am it's the receiving, right? And I think
Yes.
something that clogs me up when I talk about all the things that I want, it's very much being in the receiving mode, right? And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
I know I could have all of that. And I'm like, oh God, but then I have to be in the receiving mode. And then,
You're not alone.
yeah, no,
You're
I
not
mean, I feel like
alone.
I'm learning
I feel that
it
too.
because I feel like everyone that comes into any of the programs or listens
Mhm.
to, they're all the ones that are like, how can I give more to my horse? How can I do more? How can I do more? And I'm like, you have to just receive sometimes from them. I know it's very
Yes, you do, Amber. No, and that, so kind of coming full circle back to one of the things I shared with this, with the womb space practices, that's part of it, is learning to receive and increasing our capacity to receive. So we start with our own life force energy, and it expands through the practice because it is a movement-based meditation practice. We expand our capacity. I think that, like, with I guess I'm not an expert, but from what I can tell, sitting meditation is to increase our capacity to open up to the nothingness of the universe, to allow and
Mhm.
to open and open and open. It's the same. It's just I'm using the body as a way to access that because it's easier for me. And so, but that idea of being receptive, actively receptive. So when we come at that from it, literally from, we look at a womb space, or we look at literally the anatomy of a female, okay? A female's anatomy is meant to receive and then expand and grow. Not saying that is the only thing, and it can be ideas. It doesn't have to be human or babies. It can be ideas, projects, books, whatever. But that idea of receiving and then creating, receiving and then creating. But it's not passive receptivity, it's active receptivity.
Hmm.
It's
Oh, we need to
active.
talk about this for a minute.
Okay.
I really need to, that just was like a giant sticky note in my brain, like, whoa, there's an aha moment there for me. So, yes, please tell me more about, oh, we don't, how much time do you have?
I
I,
can stay. You can cut out other parts if you need it to be an hour. It's
I
fine.
don't need it to be an hour, but I do want to hear
Yeah, I'm
more
good.
because
I'm
that
good.
just blew my mind momentarily.
Okay, let's talk
Okay,
about
go.
it. Active
Yes.
receptivity.
Mm,
Active receptivity. So I'm going to get really specific here. I'm going to talk about reproduction because I think it is, again, the body gives us clues.
mm,
The fallopian tubes, which receive the sperm, they
mm,
have little hairs that pull the sperm toward the egg.
mm.
This is not passive.
Right.
This is very active. And then if that egg doesn't like that sperm, boom, it doesn't accept it. It can't even get past the boundaries. We haven't even talked about boundaries. But
Mhm.
that idea, the body has it everywhere. Here's this egg, it's ready to create something new. And it has boundaries.
Mhm.
Not every sperm works.
Mhm.
You know. Um, but that follicle, right? That calling in, it really moves things along. There's a desire to receive. There's an active desire to receive in order to create,
Mm.
and then receive again
Mhm.
and create again. So again, I want to make sure that people understand, like, I do not have children myself. I do not have human children. So I'm not just talking about reproduction of children, but this idea of how can I be in a place of active receptivity for what the universe has to share with me. So this is where we go a little more.
Mhm.
If the universe has all of these things that it wants to share, because there is I think a bigger, I don't know, the universe doesn't have an agenda. These are human words, but like, if love is meant to come on the planet more and more and more, and we're meant to heal and we're meant to grow and we're meant to connect, then if I am going to be a vessel, if I am going to be more of an open, receptive being to be able to bring that in so I can create more of that in the world, how can I be actively receptive? Well, just like anything, I need to make sure I take care of myself.
Mhm.
I need to be healthy. I need to be awake. I need to be aware. I need to be in the flow. I need to be well rested, which I'm not always very well rested, to be honest, but there is that piece. Um, and you also, how do I increase the capacity to receive? And again, this is where we come up against the beliefs. If I receive more, does that mean someone else receives less?
Mhm.
Is the universe infinite? Yeah. So does
Mhm.
that mean if I receive more, someone else receives less? No.
It would almost mean that others would receive more.
Yeah, it's exponential.
Right.
Yeah. It
Hmm.
amplifies in and of itself.
Hmm.
There's a radiance to it, and again, so if we take this into another realm and we think about frequencies. Um, so I like to listen to the Safagio frequencies. They work on the different levels of healing and love and all of the things. And if you listen to them in order, you can feel the shifting and the opening in the body. And if I'm at 346 megahertz, let's say, that's fine. That's where I'm at. But if I could be at 748 megahertz, just imagine then that my frequency is vibrating at this particular wavelength, which is probably not a wavelength, it's a sound wavelength. Anyway, let's just say I'm at that. Then that means you feel that too.
Hmm.
Because, here's something that I learned from someone who came to visit me in a meditation once. If I can't out myself on this one, another thing, who it was. But okay, so in a closed room, in a four-sided room, no windows, no doors. Well, I mean, there's probably a door to get in, but everything's closed. And you put, let's say, a cello in one corner and a violin in the other corner, and you pluck the string of the cello, the violin will start to vibrate,
Mm.
trying to reach the same
Hmm.
frequency.
How interesting.
So, Amber, if you and I can be at that 700 plus or 800 plus frequency, open, receptive, loving, then guess what? Other people can too,
Hmm.
because they can feel it and it starts to resonate
Hmm.
with us, which, I mean, and then we have our shadow work, because sometimes we'll see people who are, maybe they appear that they are at that frequency and we're like, oh, I'll never get there. Damn it. Or whatever that story takes.
Hmm.
Well, wait, let's just wait. Sure. Explore that, look at that. But what if I just need to listen a little more? Or what if I just need to know that it's okay for me to resonate at my highest frequency, to be my best self, to do what I can to radiate and be radiant in
Hmm.
the world, not because the ego needs to be seen, not because the ego needs to be better than, not because the ego needs to be the best, but because it's better for all.
Hmm.
So anyway, those
Yeah.
are my thoughts. So
Yeah, that makes so much sense.
active receptivity. When we work with the womb space, we are working directly with the power center in the body. We are working direct, whether you're a man or a woman, you are working with that power center. And if when we work with movement and we work with opening, and I add in a piece because of me, I add in the goddess energy. So when I'm working with the goddess and I'm allowing that energy to open and heal me, then it can open the capacity to receive. Now, I do not have this down. Let us just be very clear. I have a long way to go. There's still much more in life that I know that I feel I could experience, receive, do, but it comes down to exactly why you started this series is really understanding where I am right now and then making adjustments and refinements as needed.
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah, it is so interesting because I was when I did force myself to meditate the other day. And sometimes actually my meditation, I always try to let people know like meditation for me is like I can be driving on a road trip with no music and it can be meditation.
Yes, exactly.
Sometimes I say that me going to Starbucks because I have to sit in traffic on the way back home instead
Oh,
of driving a half a mile from my child's school straight back home and making
mhm.
tea here, I drive 10 minutes out of the way, get Starbucks, and then it takes me at least 15 minutes. And I don't know what it is about it. But I know that it's like I'm not ready to go home yet.
Yeah.
Like, and something happens. And so I was focused on fire and I was focused on the element of fire and
Mhm.
the being fire and embodying fire
Yeah.
and the that piece of I don't need to um be anything less, right? To be able
Yeah.
to have people around me have an experience. Like I can embody this and just me being
Mhm.
can be healing for people, just like people say
Absolutely.
horses.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking, I'm trying to prove myself, and how else can I say this to? And it's never. And this is something that came up when I talked to Tracy last week
Mhm.
with the voice. She's a voice psychic. She calls herself something else, but she is very much voice psychic. And what comes out is very people pleasy, right? And
Mhm.
very much like I think what she said when we did a 20-minute call last year, and I told her about the live event I was having. She pulled up.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm not worried. Wait, sorry I exist is what
Mhm.
she called it. The sorry I exist. And I was like, how can that be? I just talk so passionately about this event I'm having. But it's these little microtones, right? And it's your beliefs, it's the energy and the vibration of your belief systems coming out
Yeah.
in words.
Yes.
And recognizing when I stared at that giant ass fire for hours, that I was like, oh, like horses get to just be, and it feels so good to be near them. Like I don't have to be doing anything to
Yes.
be of service to someone. I
No.
can just be existing. And I was like, oh, like, hold on.
Be, be fully you. Be fully who you are in this moment.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Just inhabit yourself.
Hmm.
You know, I mean, I'm not an expert at this. I struggle with the best of them, believe me. But you're onto it. And, there's a particular Chiron placement, and I don't know if it's yours, but there's one that says, I feel that I don't have the right to exist. And
Hmm.
actually, currently, we're in that Chiron time right now,
Hmm.
collectively, that there's a whole bunch of energy around that.
Hmm.
Sorry, I exist.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, no, don't be sorry. Be lively, be alive, be vital. And that's why I'm passionate about the connection of the body to all of this work.
hmm.
If we can deepen in with this, and that's why I teach what I teach, because it's like this is the only place that I have found in my life where I can really feel that and really feel good about existing fully with aliveness.
Hmm.
And a lot of times I'll teach in a circle, so there are witnesses and there is reflection,
Hmm.
which is also very important. We need to have people in our lives, like you said, who can reflect back to us who we are,
Hmm.
one way or the other.
Yeah. And the witnessing is such a pivotal thing that I think people don't understand in the healing process that when I encourage people like in the workshops and stuff to share, I'm like,
Mhm.
the, there's such a huge piece of, which is why I love doing live events,
Mhm.
is
Yeah.
that piece of being witnessed and saying the things and having it be safe when
Mhm.
previous to that it hadn't, and that's how you got there, you know?
Yeah,
To be able to
exactly.
like just say, this is who I am, this is my experience right now, and have people be like, oh my God, good for you, and be like, oh, hold on, you're not gonna judge me? Like, no. Uh,
No.
and I think that I don't, is it, is it, how important is it, I think, is maybe the question to be witness and to go back into those moments where you think your nervous system fires off and you're like, oh no, this is definitely not safe. And then to do it anyways and allow it to be safe. Like, how pivotal is that piece for the healing, like that loop? It always feels like that needs to be the loop closed. Not that you
Yep.
need to go back to the actual thing necessarily, but
No.
does it have to be addressed? Can it be moved through the body without ever having it go into your mind? Like, I know there's so many different opinions about that stuff.
Mhm.
Um, so I guess what is yours?
Yeah. So one thing I've noticed is that in order to, and in my training, the first thing I always say, if you remember nothing else for the next 2 years, you're creating a safe and sacred space. You're creating a container where people feel safe enough to be seen
Hmm.
wherever they are in that moment. So the witnessing becomes vital.
Hmm.
The reflection is vital. And there's an art to it because when I'm teaching witnessing, it's important not to comment on the other person.
Hmm.
It's important to explain, to claim very briefly and in essence how I feel based on what I witnessed. So it brings it back to both, it's a double healing modality because usually when I'm witnessing, because the way this practice works is there's an individual, she is fully in herself. She has got her eyes closed. She's moving to music very slowly from the womb space. She comes back. We sit in a circle at the end. Everyone has an opportunity to share about their own experience first, and then they get to say yes or no to the witnessing. I think that witnessing is important, but it's
Hmm.
always a choice,
Hmm.
always a choice, because you're right. It closes a loop. It shifts something because then like if I say to you, Amber, and I can do this in anything, it doesn't have to be that practice, but I'll say, Amber, when I'm witnessing you speak, wow, it really opens up my heart. I feel a big expansion here in my heart when I listen to your vulnerability. Thank you. I really appreciate that you shared.
Hmm.
I mean, even as I say that, I can feel like the tears rising up because it is so important for me I'm witnessing you,
Hmm.
but I have to own what this beauty, and I will say things like, Amber, the way you speak is beautiful. The way you share is vulnerable and alive. So I'm giving that witnessing, but I'm also sharing with you how that has
Hmm.
healed something
I
in
see.
me,
Yeah. And
which
that's
then in
your own
turn,
witnessing.
right, which in turn heals something in you because then you're like, wow, when I am who I am fully and completely, oh,
Hmm.
wow, yeah, I am bringing healing in, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Hmm.
It really fully works.
Yeah.
Now, do we need to address like the shattered things that have happened to us? I'm all for that in therapy. And if you have a really good therapist, and I know one down in Aptos, for those of you that are local, and SoCal, I know someone in SoCal, but that if you need someone to witness your healing in a different way, to go and kind of pull through some of the muck, that's great. You got to have a really good person to do that. But
Hmm.
some of these other things that you and I are offering, absolutely. That can heal lifetimes of trauma. We
Hmm.
talk about the witch wound. Oh, a lot of what we're doing, just witnessing someone in their power and saying, thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for being powerful. Thank you for your rage. That that heals the witch wound right away because there's all of that, right?
Hmm.
And so, yeah, do we need to go into the details? We don't have to go, in my opinion, the
Hmm.
details. However, whenever I'm working with people, I do have a contract. And when I'm doing this kind of work, sometimes I ask them to work with a somatic therapist side by side, so like they'll have those sessions also, because somatic therapy is so valuable, right? And in many ways, you're a natural at that. That's part of the growth that you've had personally. So when you're saying, yeah, we need to do this and we need to witness each other, you're right on.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's my opinion. And it's just over the last 2.5 decades of practice, that's what I've come to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. That the idea of active receptivity, because feel like in my brain when you were explaining that, I'm thinking, yeah, the egg just chills and then the sperm is like doing all the work and it's like going in. It's like,
Nope.
"Where's the egg, let me in." So the idea that it has to be received without
Yes.
is so, like, for some reason my brain was like,
And
oh
it has to be good enough
yeah, that's so
or right enough at the time, so there's no judgment on what good is. It's what
right.
is right. No, I have to say, the sperm has momentum.
Hmm.
So it's active. I'm not saying it's not active. It's very active, apparently. But yeah, no, that egg is actively receptive.
Hmm.
The whole
So what
body.
what would passive receptivity look like?
That's a good question. I've tried to, I don't know because
Yeah.
receptivity. Well, you know what, Amber? I don't even know if I can answer this because, I was going to give you an example and I'll tell you what came to me immediately. This is how my brain has shifted. Um, so one time I had a moment in my life that was I'd been bitten by a dog and the dog had ripped open this finger, practically ripped it off. And so I was pretty ill. I had a pretty bad infection and I wasn't working. It was a lot of stuff. It was just all at once and I needed money. And I was
Hmm.
like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I need to pay rent in 14 days and, all of these things. I was on my own. And there was literally a knock at the door. I'm not kidding you. Knock, knock, knock. And I open the door and it's a postal carrier, letter carrier. And she says, here, I have a letter you need to sign for. So I sign for it. I open it up and there's a check for $5,000 in there. I'm like, well, that's pretty amazing.
Hmm.
Now, is that passive receptivity or is that active receptivity? Because I, I did the action of surrendering to what
Hmm.
was. Do you see what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
is it possible to be passive? Probably. I just don't know how to do it anymore. Well, no, that's not true. I probably do. My brain will rewire something pretty quickly to see
Right.
what the activity is in
Yeah,
that.
that makes sense. Yeah, because I was like, what would that look like? And it kind of felt like something out of the blue that was just like, this is what you've needed. And you haven't actively been like participating in the like calling in of.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well, okay. So this morning I watched a video from the little eaglets that were just hatched up in the Big Bear, and the big eagle,
Mhm.
mama and papa eagles are feeding the little eaglets. So amazing. Are they being passive? No, they're actually being quite active for as much as they can, having just hatched out of an egg. They got
Mhm.
their mouths open.
Mhm.
If their mouth isn't open, that big old beak from the parent eagle can't actually get that, the pre-digested food into their bodies. So
Mhm.
even something that, I mean, yeah, how do that's probably the most passive, maybe the most passive thing we can do is just be like, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
Highest and best. But
Yeah.
we do put a lot of energy into this. And I understand that there is great need for receiving. There is
Hmm.
great need for that. And so how can we actively receive?
Hmm.
Yeah. In the highest and best way for the
Yeah.
greatest good of all,
Oh,
with ease and grace and joy and pleasure.
period.
Yeah.
Oh my
All
goodness.
right.
Okay. So I guess, is there anything else that you have like a burning desire to share that's come up where you're like, oh, I just need to say this one thing again or new?
Well, I think we've talked a lot. I really like where this evolved because I can just feel how the passion shows up when we get to the juicy part. And sometimes it takes 55 minutes to get there, and so
I
be
was
it,
like, hold
right?
on. We need to go deep.
Yeah.
I hope you have
And
time.
the
I
other
hope you
stuff
have
is just like whatever, but tell people go to minute 55. That was a good one. Or 54 or whatever it was. But no, I think more than anything, I guess if I had one more thing to say, it's just like learning how to be the best human I can be is a lot. And
Mhm.
the journey continues to bring me places where, I get to process a lot of grief,
Mhm.
pain, and I've learned to become more comfortable with that over time. And so, however it is, we can become more comfortable with processing all of it and coming out the other side, whatever that is. I encourage everyone to do that, because ultimately, if we are beings of love, then how can I be the most love that I can on
Mhm.
this planet at this time?
Mhm. Yeah. How lovely.
Good.
If people would like to follow you or check out any of your programs, where should they find you? And I'll also put it in the show notes.
Yeah, I think the best way to do it is just DeniseElizabethByron.com. Full name, two E's. Denise ends with an E. Elizabeth starts with an E. Sometimes people forget, but just go there. Then there's a newsletter people can drop into. And then I do have my Cosmic Compass, which you've been on a couple times. And then I also send things out. But people can contact me through email as well. So there's ways to find me. My social media presence is not that big right now for many reasons. And I don't see that changing right now. So the best way is through Cosmic Compass or come to the website and then find me there.
Cool.
Okay.
Well, thank you for hanging out.
Oh, thank you so much. It was so much fun, as always.
Yeah,
As
definitely.
always.
And I
Yeah.
will definitely make it a point to go up there and
Yeah,
immerse
no, you're
myself.
welcome to. Yeah. I mean, I'm excited. I have a couple more clients coming this year, and it's really fun to engage at that deeper level.
Hmm.
So,
How fun. Cool.
1-to-1, right? 1-to-1. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So fun. Well, all
all
right.
right. All right.
Thank
Mwah.
thank you. Thank
All right.
you.